Here we go. Welcome into the show. You're watching the San Francisco 49ers Report. Chase Senior hanging out here with the faithful. And, of course, no matter where you are, how you're tuned in, thank you so much for making today's show a part of your day. The offseason is here for the Niners, but the coverage doesn't stop here on the program. Coming up on today's show, ESPN's wild predictions for the Niners this offseason. It is a big offseason coming up for this organization. Speaking of that, subscribe to the channel. I have you covered every step of the way, every day throughout this pivotal offseason for the Niners. We're going to bring you the latest news, rumors, and reports. We're going to give you excellent NFL free agency coverage. NFL draft content is going to be stellar. Anytime there's trade buzz, we'll dive into that as well. And as you can see, we're 212 people away from 191,000 subscribers. Let's get there today. The Niners offseason profile from ESPN. San Francisco, of course, with everything that they had to deal with this year, everything they had to endure, still went 12-5 in the regular season, won a wild card playoff game. It was a successful 2025 for the Niners. Their final football power index ranking, pretty damn good. At number 9 right there, the Niners' estimated cap space going into the 2026 offseason, it's minus $5 million here, according to ESPN. That's not the case. The Niners actually are top 10, top 15 in cap room. And the NFL salary cap as a whole is going to blossom, probably north of $300 million. And the Niners are going to make some moves to clear up some cap space. So San Francisco, from a cap perspective, is going to be in a pretty good position going into next year. And a big reason for that, they ate more than $100 million in dead money this past season. With the Niners making it to the divisional round, unfortunately, their first-round draft pick, number 27 overall, I think the NFL needs to make a little bit of a change here. Like, it's not based on playoff seeding, right? The Eagles got the 3 seed. They have the 23rd overall pick. The Niners beat the Eagles, and they made it to the second round, and they're the number 27 selection, despite them being the 6th seed in the playoffs. So I don't love how the NFL does that. I wish they kind of reseeded a little bit, but either way, we know that the first-round selection for the Niners is going to be number 27 overall. As for what ESPN said is the top offseason priority for the Niners, what is that top offseason priority? Bolster the pass rush. Getting a healthy Nick Bosa and Mykel Williams will help, but San Francisco has never been shy about adding more. This season, San Francisco, last in the NFL in sacks with only 20 in 17 games. That is dreadful. And a pressure rate of 24.7%. It was 29th in pass rush win rate. For many years, the front four has been the foundation of the Kyle Shanahan, John Lynch era. The Niners definitely need to get better up front along the defensive line. And Bryce Huff will be back. He's a good Robin. As we saw, not a Batman. He started the year pretty well, and then he was a no-show for the back half of the season. Mykel Williams is more of a run-stopping defensive end. You have an elite pass rusher in Nick Bosa, but he's coming off yet another ACL injury. And so the Niners need to go out there this offseason, draft, free agency. They need to address the pass rush. It's not a sustainable way to play when you have 20 sacks in 17 games. Adding to what ESPN said, of course, Niners need to find a new defensive coordinator to replace Robert Saleh. I talked about my favorite candidates on the show last night. Brian Flores, Jim Schwartz, Raheem Morris, my top 3. A bigger need for the 49ers this offseason is getting faster and more explosive on offense. That offense against Seattle didn't put a lick of threat into that Seahawks defense. They were not concerned at all by anybody beating them vertically or with any type of speed and athleticism component. And the Niners need to prioritize that this offseason as well. Speaking of that, ESPN on the secondary priority for the Niners. What is that secondary priority to watch? Find a difference-making wide receiver. The 49ers are all but certain to move on from Brandon Ayuk. Jawan Jennings is a free agent. Ricky Pearsall has struggled to stay healthy. Don't be surprised if the Niners are in the mix for a big-name free agent or if they dedicate valuable draft resources to the position. How about both? How about going after a player like Alec Pierce in free agency, who is tall, can run, has good hands, led the NFL in yards per catch this past year. How about looking at a guy like Rashid Shaheed, who is a blazer and an electrifying playmaker as a returner and as a wide receiver? You put him in Kyle Shanahan's offense, I think that he could go crazy. And then in the draft, take a wide receiver early and don't reach for a player like Ricky Pearsall. Get a bona fide stud. And so this brings me to this point here. We're going to cut this up for a YouTube short. Going into this offseason, the 49ers have major questions at the wide receiver position. They desperately need to rebuild that room this offseason. It's inevitable that Brandon Ayuk is going to be playing elsewhere in 2026. I do wonder, does a team have interest in Ayuk? He's coming off an ACL, MCL, meniscus tear. He's been acting like a shitbird for a long time. If a team trades for him, he's going to be very expensive. Is he okay mentally? Is he okay physically? Does he still love the game of football? Either way, he's not going to be on the Niners next season. I love Jauan Jennings as a player. He's the ultimate glue guy. He has come through clutch in so many big-time situations for the Niners. But given that the wide receiver market is robust, he could demand more than $20 million per year. The Niners need to get faster at wide receiver. He's not fast, and that would be an overpay in my opinion. Ricky Pearsall is a fine player, but he's always hurt. And that draft selection, it's hurting San Francisco because Pearsall can't stay on the field regularly. So I think the Niners need to go out in free agency and in the draft and address that wide receiver position to get some new blood in there. Speaking of Jauan Jennings, will the Niners re-sign him? ESPN on that situation. He wanted an extension last offseason, didn't get one, so it's possible some hard feelings linger, and he wants to look elsewhere. But if Ayuk is out of the picture, the Niners will have more of an incentive to bring back Jennings. Perhaps an injury-plagued season drops his free agent value enough that he fits into their plans. I'll say this, the wide receiver spot right now for the Niners is pretty bleak, right? Ayuk not going to be on the team. Jauan Jennings, free agent. The only wide receivers that you have right now, Ricky Pearsall, injured often, although I like the player, probably more of a number 2. I said this when the Niners drafted him. Demarcus Robinson, Jacob Cowing, Jordan Watkins. Jacob Cowing can't stay healthy. Jordan Watkins couldn't see the field, and he was hurt this year as well. Big need for this offense. Coming up next, what are the Niners' draft plans? A big prediction from ESPN on defense, and will San Francisco make a trade, blockbuster trade, for A.J. Brown? We'll talk about that as well. Today's 49ers report, though, is brought to you by Prize Picks. The big game is almost here, and there's no better way to cash in during America's biggest sporting event than with Prize Picks, where it always feels good to be right. And since the big game is right around the corner, that also means it's your last chance to get into the football action before next year. So close the season out right with Prize Picks by getting $50 instantly in lineups when you play your first $5 lineup. Are you missing your fantasy team? Your league is already over, but with Prize Picks, you don't have to wait until next year's draft to keep playing fantasy. Prize Picks lets you play fantasy football every week, even in the playoffs. Pick your favorite players and win when they hit their projections every week. No draft required. Join the millions of users. Sign up for America's #1 sports picks app. 4-pick power play for Championship Sunday. Can't wait for it. Cortland Sutton, more than a half rushing or receiving touchdown. The same for Stephon Diggs. Broncos, Patriots on the AFC side, and then the NFC side. Seahawks, Rams, NFC West rivalry. Kenneth Walker, more than a half rushing or receiving touchdown. The same for Puka Nacua. Download the Prize Picks app today. Use the code CLNS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code CLNS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks, it's good to be right. Let's do some Niners draft talk. The 2026 NFL Draft going to be taking place in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. Hot take, I think Pittsburgh, one of the more underrated cities in the United States, and it is very scenic, especially in the month of April. So I think that the crowd shots and the overall television shots gonna be beautiful that time of year for the 2026 NFL Draft. Here's what ESPN had to say on the Niners draft plans. The Niners haven't shied away from selecting receivers early, most recently taking Pearsall in the first round of the 2024 NFL Draft. Near the end of this year's first round, Casey Concepcion, Texas A&M, is an option who could fit into Shanahan's system. strong route runner, ranked 26th nationally in yards after the catch this season with 449. Kyle Shanahan loves receivers who can pick up yak. You know what's been missing the last 2 years? Wide receivers who can pick up yak. Having wide receivers who are explosive. When you combine that with the running game not being dominant the last 2 years, that's why this offense has been limping at times. And so you think about what the Niners have done. They took Deebo Samuel in the second round in 2019. They took Brandon Ayuk in the first round in 2020. That built their wide receiver room for the years to come after that, right? I think they need to do something very similar. I don't know if I'd go wide receiver in the first round because you can get a good wideout in the second round. Maybe you go offensive tackle first round or offensive line in the first round, wide receiver second round. Boom. That could really help you for 2026 and beyond. ESPN with the big prediction on what the Niners do this offseason. The Niners will go for a defensive overhaul. Expect the Niners to pursue John Franklin Myers, an old pal of Robert Saleh from his Jets days, and Trey Hendrickson, who makes sense on a one-year deal. They could swing for a big trade too. Kayvon Thibodeau, anyone? Can you imagine if the Niners get John Franklin Myers, they sign Trey Hendrickson, and then you add those two players to Nick Bosa and Mykel Williams? That's how you fix your pass rush. That's how you add depth to your defensive line. And Trey Hendrickson, Mykel Williams, they can also play defensive tackle. Nick Bosa was doing a little bit of that to start last year. John Franklin Myers, the familiarity with Saleh. Obviously, Saleh is gone, but the Niners still going to run a similar system, I would imagine. 26 tackles, 6 TFLs, 7.5 sacks, 15 quarterback hits, 39 pressures for a Broncos team that had, I think, 65 sacks in the regular season this past year. Last 4 years for John Franklin Myers, last 2 years with Denver, 7.5 sacks in 2025, 7 sacks in 2024. I don't think he's a true 1A. And you think about who he's been playing alongside. Zach Allen is a dog. Nick Bonito is a really good player. But John Franklin Myers, you pair him up alongside Nick Bosa, a Trey Hendrickson, a Mykel Williams, I think that he can have that similar production that he's had the last 2 years with Denver. And then lastly, could the 49ers trade for wide receiver A.J. Brown? I talked earlier, and I've been talking over the last couple of days about how the Niners need to rebuild their wide receiver room. Could they do it with one of the top wideouts in the game, who's a top 5, top 10 wide receiver in the sport? Don't let the numbers fool you. Plus, each year he's been with the Eagles, he's gone over 1,000 yards, and he was an All-Pro 3 times. ESPN on an A.J. Brown trade. This is from Jeremy Fowler. Brown's happy to be here quotient in Philly is miserably low. He's a great player, and great players are hard to replace. But the Eagles have never been scared to make a move due to the salary cap implications. The Eagles actually can save $7 million on the cap by designating Brown a post-June 1 trade, and it feels like it's time. Some league execs have felt that way since October. The Bills have to upgrade their wide receiver. Their best receiver is Khalil Shakir, who is a nice player, but he's not a top guy, an NFL personnel evaluator said. Brown is an immediate upgrade, and he's still young, turning 29 in June, and the Eagles can build the passing game around Devontae Smith and a high draft pick. Other potential fits via NFL scouts. These are scouts that think that AJ would be a good fit on a team like the Titans, Browns, Raiders, but also the San Francisco 49ers. A.J. Brown has been so fed up with the Eagles' offensive scheme and how they can't scheme ways to get him open. Kyle Shanahan would have a field day designing routes and plays to get A.J. Brown sprung free in that secondary. You want to get a player who's going to put a threat into that Seahawks secondary, physically and speed-wise, picking up yards after the catch? That's where A.J. Brown excels. Do not forget to give me a follow on social media. My pages have been humming of late. Thanks to everybody for the support. I'm on X, Instagram, TikTok, @Chase_Senior. I'm on Facebook, Chase Senior Chat Sports.